So we are here with Sean Conlon, the host of The Deed, and also a very obviously well-known for your real estate mogul with things you, which I cannot wait to talk to you about and figure out a little bit more about your background. Good to have you with us, man.
Really lovely to be here. Obviously,
good to be in your nice home you have here.
You're very complimentary. Thank you,
Chicago.
but it's an old house, but I like it. It's very pretty.
Beautiful place. So you're an immigrant. You came here from, a similar
Yes.
place where Conor McGregor is from, and so I want to know a little bit more about your support for him or not.
Well,
but first, let's go with your story.
Okay, well, firstly, obviously, you're an immigrant too, so
Yes.
you'll understand my story. It's what makes America great, still. I am from the same place as Conor McGregor without the fighting ability. I'd like to think I dress a little better also,
Sure.
but obviously he's incredible talent. Yeah, I come from Ireland.
Okay.
I immigrated to America in 1990. I'm that generation as your parents were, that America is the place you can be anything you want. I still believe that. It ebbs and flows once in a while, but generally speaking, you can be anything you want. And I rocked up to America in 1990 and I worked as a janitor. Actually, I'm embellishing my resume. I was actually the assistant to the janitor.
The assistant janitor.
Yeah, and I was terrible. I was really bad at janitoring. And I started selling real estate in 1993, and the rest is kind of my story.
Wow. So what month in 1990, by the way? I'm curious.
I think the end of September, guessing roughly, if I remember correctly, was September.
I came November 28, 1990.
Seriously,
I
wow.
lived in Iran for 10 years, 2 years in Germany at a refugee camp, and in November 28, 1990, I came here.
America.
Yeah, so I was listening to your story. I'm like, 1990 is a magical year.
And I obviously read your story. And again, it's what makes America inspiring, right?
No doubt about it. So how did you get into real estate? How did that whole, process take place for you?
So when I was working as the part-time assistant janitor, whatever I wasn't very good at it. I always had a passion for real estate. Growing up in Ireland, a lot of people don't know, but historically, till the late 1800s, Irish Catholics were not allowed to own real estate. So we have this obsession about owning property. So I was always fascinated by real estate, and my dad would drive me by with a friend to look at these big old beautiful castles, and I was just fascinated by them. So I decided I would sell real estate part-time, and I was really not good at it. And I cold called. I would go in every night after work as a janitor and sit down and cold call people. And I had a funny accent. I don't know, I might still have a bit of an accent, but they would be like, honey, that guy who sounds like Lucky Charms is on the phone again. And I would religiously call these people. And for 6 months, I didn't sell anything. And I nearly gave up every day.
6 months?
Yeah, nearly gave up every day. I never really gave up. Because I'd get up the next day, I'm like, this is the day. And you know what? One day it was. I mean, I did a $20,000 deal. I called it for sale by owner. And by the end of the 90s, I was selling nearly $200 million a year.
All by yourself?
All by myself.
200 million?
Yeah. Back when $1 million listings were not shows, I probably, they said, sold more real estate than anybody in North America in the late 90s.
They said you're the godfather of condos. No one sold more condos than you in America. So.
In Chicago, being the godfather of anything is a dubious honor, but I'll take
That's
it.
right. That's right. I'm with you. So you're full-time doing your assistant janitor work?
Yes.
So it's like a 9-to-5 job you have?
So it was like actually probably 8 a.m. to like closer to 6. Then I would get in, and back before I knew what like moisturizer was or face wash, I would clean the paint off me with paint thinner, which is a petroleum-based thing. So I'd get in the office all blotchy red and start cold calling with my little headset.
And so one of the things I saw you said, which I thought was fascinating, is you said you loved Saturdays and Sundays because you could work from 9 to 10.
In the real estate office. I would say there is no magic, right? So I just work really hard. And, of course there's serendipity and luck involved in some things. I can't place where it came in for me in the 90s. I've subsequently seen all sorts of luck, and a lot of it was bad, but some of it was very good. In the 90s, I didn't get lucky. I really just worked very hard. But yes, Saturdays and Sundays, I could drive around to open houses and annoy all the real brokers by asking stupid questions. They say there are no stupid questions. I invented a whole load of them in the 90s.
That's great. So obviously you have the work ethic. I mean, you
Yes,
don't have the work
yes.
ethic. And where did that work ethic come from? Did you have an example where you're watching your dad?
It's interesting. So my father was the most charismatic man in the world and the most wonderful dreamer in the world. So as an inspiration, he was everything. He was everything that inspired me, except he was a horrendous businessman. Everything he touched turned to dust.
Really? So
yeah.
he actually started businesses, but didn't
little
work
business,
out.
every one of them failed.
Wow,
He
okay.
sold Amway. I mean, there wasn't...
In Ireland?
Yeah, I mean, God, he was a dreamer. And he poured all of his belief, even though there was 5 kids, he poured all of his belief into me that I was going to be the one. Now my mother, no nonsense, 2 jobs, school teacher, raised 5 kids in a small house. I mean, so I got my mother's angry work ethic, and obviously she's an incredible woman. And I got my father's charm and charisma, and America was made for that at the time.
So you came here by yourself?
I came by myself. I had a 4th or 5th.
One day you just said, I'm coming out here? What was that transition for you?
So I dropped out of college in Ireland, went to work in London. And I worked actually at Lehman Brothers in London. It's not my fault. I didn't break the company. I didn't create the issues. And I had a very non-important job there. And then I loaded mail trains at night in London. But I'm standing on the train platform one day and I'm like, I'm going to be average the rest of my life. And there was a news headline about something the SAS had done.
You remember that moment?
Yeah, I do. And lots of moments you reinvent, but this one I can remember to this day. I was standing in Paddington Station, and there was a news headline in one of the tabloids, and the SAS's motto is "Fortune favors the brave," right? That's their motto. I'm standing watching this platform coming home from another average day in my average life thinking, I'm going to be average the rest of my life if I don't do something that scares me and puts me out of my comfort zone. So we had distant cousins here who had come to visit us. And I said, can I come over? And they're like, yeah, boom, I came to America.
Is that Donovan?
Yes,
That
yes.
was
And
Donovan?
the cool thing is, the Donovans are fantastic, and to this day, and they did give me an opportunity to be an assistant janitor, but they gave me an opportunity. I make fun of it, but they did. And what's super cool is his son and the grandson of the guy who gave me my first job works for me at my real estate merchant bank now as a real estate analyst.
Wow.
They're basically their
So that continues. So you're
full
giving back,
circle.
that's right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Awesome.
giving back.
So did you go back? I mean, how often have you gone back and visited family?
Well, so
again?
the interesting thing initially was like for 4 or 5 years, I didn't get to go back. I didn't have enough money, and I was figuring out paperwork and all the usual stuff. And
by the way, everybody's back there. No one came with you.
yeah, so subsequently, my brother Kieran has come to work
Okay.
with me, and my sister was out here. But my mom and them were back there. But my dad, the first thing I ever did, I've done a lot of amazing things since, and I've had dinner with kings and princes and traveled around the world and flown on the Concorde, but none of those things, they all pale in comparison to, in 95, I saved up the bit of extra money I had, and I went home. And my dad used to walk me by the Mercedes dealership, and we'd look in the window, and he'd explain to me what the car was, and somebody really rich was getting that. I bought him a Mercedes for Christmas. Coolest thing I've ever done.
Did you surprise him or did you take him?
I mean, we went up and we looked at it, and it was a surprise, but it was cool. I mean, he died very young. He died in 2000, but he lived long enough to see me do everything he ever dreamed of, and then some. So that's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, bar none. There's nothing even touches
things
it.
like that.
Yeah.
Just 3 months ago, I bought my dad a Mercedes.
Okay,
And for
so-
him, he wouldn't lend me. He had a 1979
And he's still
Mercedes.
around.
He's still around.
That's cool,
Yeah, he's still
yeah.
around. So it's
And
it's
how
an
many of you
interesting
came
experience.
over?
Say that
How
again.
many of you came over when you came?
So when I came, we went from Iran to Germany. I lived there
Yeah.
a couple of years. My parents got a divorce. So my dad came to Chicago first. He lived here for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then we came with my mom and my sister.
Okay.
And we moved to LA.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool.
But the power of immigrants, man, when they come here with the fire that, you know, you have to. Now, when you were living in Ireland, what was like? How was America viewed when you were there?
That's
was it like?
It's a great question. America, I mean, you know, we're not going to touch politics right now, but America is great, doesn't need to be made great again. Of course it has all of its problems, but there's nowhere in the world There's nowhere in the world that has a more level playing field still. There's nowhere in the world you can do the things you can do.
agree.
Growing up in Ireland, we were raised on America. I wanted to be John Wayne,
Got it.
Cary Grant, Clint Eastwood. Everything was America. America in your mind was that promised land where you could be anything, right? You could be anything in it. The local library complained to my mother once when I was 12, I was reading too many books, right? It's great. I read too many books about art and houses and falconry. But one thing I really read a lot about was, I read about Andrew Carnegie. I read about Rockefeller.
In Ireland, you were reading about Carnegie.
In the library. I wanted these
And
books.
you were 12 years old.
Yeah, 12, 13, 14. I read these
Why
books.
was that? Now let me ask you, was it because your dad would say, look at this, y'all, look at this? Because you said
Bingo,
something there.
bingo.
So your dad was getting your dream machine going at
my,
that age.
Yeah, my dad, but he didn't know, he wasn't doing intention. He's like, come here, Shawnee, look at this. And he called me Sean. He's like, come here, Shawnee, look at this. He's like, look at that book. That's an American guy has that. And anytime anything was big or amazing, my father would be like, that's America. So
cool.
It was in my mind. So it shows you the impact you can have on kids and children with the right positive message.
Unbelievable.
And reading. I still tell people, you need to read.
Would your dad tell you to read? Would your
No,
mom tell you to read?
my
So that
mom would
was
tell
okay.
yeah, my mom
Your
would tell
would
me.
you to read.
But ironically, my dad, who dropped out of school at 12, my mom was very well educated. My dad, who dropped out of school at 12, read the paper from cover to cover every
Every day.
day. Yeah,
Wow.
and he could tell you everything about America, everything. And so internally, he dreamt of coming to America and was scared. And he nearly came once, and the guy he was coming to, interestingly enough, got killed in some sort of mob hit in New York, I kid you not. And my dad, I fulfilled his dream. And he eventually came here, and I lived in this is a modest place now. I was like a guy who'd won the Powerball lottery. When my dad showed up, I was living in a 7,000 square foot house. I mean, there was so many floors in the thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And-
he vicariously lived through his son.
Yeah.
Which that
And-
means he's
yeah.
still living because
Yeah.
that spirit
Yeah.
is still
Well,
there.
I have a spirit, and so do my siblings. I have an amazing family.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it from
Yeah.
and by the way, your mom sounds like
She's awesome.
The way you describe your mom, she sounds like the strong. When you see her speak, she seems very strong. herself.
She's not into stuff. Many years ago, I was showing off to my mother, and I landed in the lawn of our modest house in a black helicopter. She didn't come out of the house. I walk in like I'm Billy Big Deal, and she hands me a paper bag. She said, "Did you see all of the papers you blew into the neighbor's house, the Mangans?" And hands me the bag. So I have to go out in my three-piece Savile Row suit and pick up all the papers on the lawn.
I love that.
So yeah, it's great.
I love that.
I'm
How
good
she
with
does
it.
She still looks such as Sean.
Absolutely.
So let's transition. So you go from zero,
Yeah.
where at a point if you sold $1 million of properties in a year, Board of Realty would give you a plaque, you sell 200 million in a year.
Yeah.
Then you transition into starting a business. So it's
That's
like
right.
instead of selling, now let me build it. So Sussex and Riley get started and you do $1 billion
Yeah.
of sales
Yes.
per year. How did that transition
So,
take place?
so interestingly enough, people here talk about me like I've been around for 100 years, and I said, I broke a real estate from 93 to 99.
6
December 99, I was done. I was the most prolific, it sounds conceited, obviously, I don't mean, but I was the most prolific broker in the city. Nobody did or has done what I did. And I ended 99 though, it was a form of burnout. I had the 2 pagers, I had the Gordon Gekko cell phones. I mean, it was intense. I'm like, I can get rich doing this, I can never get wealthy. And I need some headspace. So I'm like, I want to do something in the space more creative. So I started Sussex and Raleigh. Interestingly enough, it's going to sound like I had the fastest horse and carriage in the world because it seems dated now, but we were one of the largest users of BlackBerries in North America, which was a handheld device, by the way, in 2000.
Users of BlackBerry.
One of the largest users of BlackBerries corporately in North America in the early 2000s. I gave every one of my agents a BlackBerry. And then the other thing I did before I opened, I would run a full page ad every week without the name of my company and just a phone number. And it would say, announcing a bold new vision for real estate. And then I would put in parentheses, I know that sounds like a code of ethics for used car sales. And then the next week I'd followed up with an ad, I'm about to clean up the face of real estate. And then in parentheses I would say, but I need to find the guys who handle that whole Exxon Valdez thing. So I ran these for about a month and everyone's like, what's going on? Who
Once
is
a
this?
week.
Yeah, once a week, like 10, 20,000 a pop.
Sure.
You know, when it was in print media, it was expensive. And I ran them for a month. And then we opened, and the buzz was so much, and classic. The real estate board wanted to sue me for insulting realtors.
Insulting realtors.
I'm not going to touch that because I love realtors.
Wow. So what do you think made you different, though? I mean, you saw your competitor, you study people. So what made you different?
So we'll go back to the beginning of the conversation. So I came at it as an immigrant from the outside.
Okay.
So immigrant or outsider, you look at things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at this business where there's no limit on what you can make, but people have no accountability. You, as a broker, sometimes you stay in bed if you want, and you come in. I approach it like this was the greatest job opportunity I had in my life. I wore a suit every day. I wore a tie every day. I behaved like I'd just gotten the job at, Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. So I approached it with a discipline. I ran it like a business. And subsequently, that became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It became a very good business. So I came at it as a contrarian, which I always have done with everything I've ever done. And invariably, you're wrong sometimes, but when you're right, you're really right.
You only got to be right big a couple times.
Like I'm going today to visit a friend in the Hamptons, and he's the guy who broke Enron, Jim Chanos. He was the greatest short seller in the world. And you think how long he was wrong till he was right on Enron. Think how long he was wrong in China till he was right. He's short Tesla. It's a scary place to be a contrarian, because that warm feeling you feel, generally, you know what that is? It's the center of the herd.
Yep.
So when you're cold and scared, you're probably in front of the herd. You could be behind the herd, but you're not in it. And so him as a short seller, he takes that to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. It's like the whole that movie. What was it? Big Short.
So he's in it. Jim Chanos is in it.
Oh, so that's his story.
He's part of the story.
got
He was
it.
one of the big monster guys who shorted the market.
Got it. Yeah, and nobody believed him until it really happened.
Yeah.
So one last question before you tell us a little bit about Dita, and then we'll wrap up. So you build a company, then you start recruiting real estate agents, right? What did you look for when recruiting agents? So what are you looking for?
So
What
that's
qualities are you looking for?
all right. So when I started Sussex and Raleigh, which was the forerunner to Conlon Real Estate, which we are now, I hired non-brokers. I hired people who had not been in the business. So we were quite famous at the time for building this huge company without brokers, because I was an outsider. I was somewhat treated like an outsider, which makes me somewhat of an Orwellian character. I like to be an outsider and maybe to have perceived enemies in my head, just to be honest with you. So I'm like, fine, I'm going to be an outsider. I had people who came from McKinsey & Company, law firms, JP Morgan. I mean, they came from every walk of life. But they were hungry, they were professional, and they were going to behave like real estate investment advisors. That's what I said we are. We are not realtors. In that sense, it's obviously a great brand. We're not brokers. You're real estate investment advisors, or you're real estate advisors. You're going to be their lifelong advisor in real estate. And that's what I got. And I built a company that grew to $1 billion in 14 months in sales. And
$1 billion in 14 months.
Yeah, and it was incredibly successful at the time, as far as profitability too.
Got it. So if I wanted to be one of your top guys, what are 3 things you tell me to focus on?
So I would say, firstly, show up on time for our interview. Tell me how hard you'll work. So this is the interview process. And obviously, just genuinely care. To be successful in real estate, I would make it much simpler. There's no magic. My top agents work the most. There's no magic. You tell everybody that you're in the business. You show up on time. You dress smart. You treat it like it's the biggest investment people are ever going to make. It's not a part-time job, but hard work. There's no magic. And read everything you can about real estate.
Educate yourself.
Yeah, and read the Wall Street Journal if you can every day, some of it, or the New York Times, or just know a little bit about everything that's going on. It's very relevant. That would be my advice.
I like that. And then last but not least, the show, Deeds.
Yes.
How did that come about, and tell us a little bit about it?
So the show came about because of serendipity. So when I say I've had luck and some not, that's true serendipity. Back when I was the assistant janitor, I would have got a bonus if I turned people in who were not on the lease. So there's a fellow in the building called Bob Title, and he wasn't on the lease, so I could have turned him in. And he had a nickname for me, Subtitles, because he said I didn't speak English. So I really should have turned him in, but I loved him. And he goes off to try and sell a movie in Los Angeles. He comes back in 94. He tells this story beautifully when he spoke at a college. He comes back in 94 and he's like, he's 10,000 short for making his movie. And he sees a Range Rover coming down the street in 94. He's like, drug dealers had them and rappers maybe. And he's like, it stops, who gets out of it? Subtitles. He's like, so I'm assuming Subtitles has got a really good drug dealing gig going on. And he tells, in Chicago, he tells me what he's doing. And I'm like, I got this. I take a check out, apparently write a check in the hood of the car, which I did. So he went off and made Barbershop, Men of Honor, Biggie, Tupac. I mean, he made a slew of hits. He married the first native-born Prime Minister of Bermuda's daughter. I'm the godfather to the kid. We're best friends to this day. We sit on the beach on my house in Malibu some Christmas and we look into each other. We're like, really? And he brought me into CNBC with him. I was his real estate advisor. And he's like, you guys should do something. And here we are. And it's really cool because it's what I have done anyway. So it's very real. I lend my own money.
You show the difficulties of it.
Yeah. There are difficulties. What we probably didn't emphasize enough is we've done all those deals now and they've worked and the people have gotten their money out and stuff like that. And I've gotten paid back. It's actually a great process and it's really exciting. And the end, but we didn't get to show, like a lot of these people are ecstatic. They've done it and they're going to do it for a living. So it's great. It's the Deed Chicago is a real show. And it's very different.
That did it, with somebody that's an experience.
Yeah.
You're not an actor.
Yeah.
This is somebody that went
and there's no script. There's no script. And the things I tell them, it's not because I've read it. I've met all these mistakes. I've had these things happen to me.
That's great.
So that's what I like about that show.
Well, listen, this has been a pleasure. I mean,
thank you. Likewise.
Very, very interesting guy. So, Conor McGregor versus Mayweather. What do you think? Do you think he stands a chance? Like,
let me tell you something. Two of the greatest businessmen ever. Yeah. I don't care who loses, right? I'd take that fight because he knocks me out in the first minute, second,
$100 million,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating thing because of their age differential, and McGregor psychologically is a street fighter a fantastic story, by the way. Fantastic Irish story. He came from a really poor place. For all the showmanship, he's a real pro. Mayweather, though, is probably an artist, right? I mean, this is something like he's psychologically, he knows how to play defense, but it'll be an amazing one. I can't call it. I'm not going to call it.
You're not going to call it, okay.
But I'm up for McGregor, obviously.
So I'm hoping for a shocking ending with McGregor getting a left one in there. But we'll see what's going to happen.
I'm not going to call it, but I'm obviously up for McGregor, of course. And it's wonderful. I didn't mean to discount his outfits. He dresses like the most wonderful squire ever in his suits. I don't know if you've seen him, but
he puts on a show. He's definitely a show.
He's a brilliant showman.
He is.
Yeah.
They're both of them.
Yeah.
They're both showmen, so.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's an American.
Hey, man, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Lovely
really,
to meet you.
Really
Thank you. Very honored to be on your show. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and so you can go look him up and study. He's got a real good story, but thank you for your time, Sean.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you, guys.